Hello again. My name is Chandras Tejura and welcome to the fourth video in the Guildhall Open Talk series. As mentioned previously in video number 2, research is very important. And another piece of research which struck me was the work done by my colleague, Dr. Wendy Bloisi. She examines bullying in the workplace, and in particular in this video she discusses the hospitality industry. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Hello, I'm going to talk about my research, which is about bullying at work. Now, the reason I'm going to talk about research is because research actually impacts on the teaching that we do at university, and it helps you to actually increase your knowledge of the workplace. Now, the reason that I'm going to talk about bullying at work is because it's a subject I'm very interested in, and it is something you will come across as managers in organisations. Now, my research has been over the last few years has been in the area of bullying at work among chefs, and as you can imagine, that's a very hot topic, and I don't mean hot in the heat sense. Now, the reason I looked at bullying at work among chefs is really because there are a lot of television programmes today that talk about shouting chefs, at chefs throwing things, at chefs losing their temper. And I thought it would be interesting to actually find out if it's true, because it may be that you wouldn't actually like to work in an environment with violence and abuse going on. And if that is the case, why do people work there and why do they stay there? So I looked at a lot of chefs working in organisations, and I asked them questions about what they did, the sort of behaviours they expected, and the experiences. And what I found out was that about 2% of chefs are actually regularly bullied. And this is in keeping with what happens in organisations in general. So in all jobs in the UK, it has been found that a small number of people may be regularly bullied. However, what I found out about chefs is that there's a much larger percentage compared with the rest of the UK population who are occasionally bullied. And this occasional bullying could be to do with bullying in the workplace, in other words, their job, them not being up to their job, but it could also be to do with personal bullying, picking on a personal aspect, or it could also be to do with maybe violence and intimidation. And that is not what we want to have happen to us when we go to work. Another aspect of bullying could also be excluding people. So what a lot of people think is that if they're shouted at, if they're abused at work or bullied at work or have negative behaviour at work, then that is what bullying is. But what if you don't invite people to meetings? What if you don't share information with people? That is also bullying at work. So let me go back to my chefs. As I've said, 2% of the population of chefs may be regularly bullied, and it could be that they're bullied out of the organisation. But a much larger percentage, 15%, are actually occasionally bullied, and these are ones that maybe put up with the shouting, the sexual harassment, and maybe general violence. We need to actually stop bullying at work. That is one of the reasons that I've been looking at this subject. And the reasons we need to stop it is because it actually can, one, affect the actual individual. It can cause them to have stress. It can actually cause them to not be able to actually go to work anymore, which means that they cannot actually, if they cannot work, it means they cannot look after their family, and they could become an economic burden on the state. And the other reason is that if you allow bullying at work, nobody will want to work for your organisation because it will be known as an unhappy place. And what you tend to find is organisations with a high percentage of bullying at work have a high labour turnover. And if you look at the hospitality industry and chefs, you may well find that they don't actually stay in their job very long, and they move from job to job. And one of the reasons for this is maybe to do with bullying in the workplace.